Origin gents, welcome to CG Reacts, and this is Special Forces raid to boom up. I guess I have to be. This is the thing is gotten in YouTube. Like I have to worry about what words I'm going to use. But boom up missile base in Syria. Last time I used the word Syria, and even that caused an issue. So I don't even know. Okay, so the regime change happened in Syria. Somebody else came in power, and there was always this okay, wow, what is going to happen, all the dynamic of USA, Russia and other countries are there, right? So how the countries are going to act, right? Are they going to do something about something, are they going to destroy some bases or equipment so a new regime doesn't get idea, whatever. I don't know what this is going to be about. I'm guessing it's something like that, but yeah. Navy Mutual has been okay. That's the ad, I guess. Okay, so I guess we'll see what this is about. It's gonna be interesting. Let's watch it. Obviously, it's recent events, so yeah. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. I like watching global events. Is a strong word. I don't know. People take things out of context. I don't like none of this shit. But yeah, it's things happen in the world. It's a good way to see, right, and a good way to project what's going to happen in the future. Geopolitics is really interesting. Is there going to be instability in the region? Is it not this? You can analyze things based on something like this, why was the mission done and things like that. And Task and Purpose is a great channel to provide that detail. So let's watch it.
Have been in shock when they were given the target details. The site they were tasked with hitting was codenamed Deep Layer. Deep Layer was located deep in the mountains near the town of Masyaf, 124 miles north of the Israeli border and 28 miles inland from the Mediterranean coast. It's considered the second most densely concentrated air defense zone in all of Syria. The facility is built in a broad horseshoe shape and dug into the earth between 200 and 400 feet under the mountain. Even if you reach Deep Layer, it's made of reinforced concrete with heavy blast doors and 16 compartmentalized rooms for missile production and storage. On the outside were heavily armed guards. Further complicating matters, the location was in close proximity to the Russian naval base at Tartus to dissuade any airstrikes against it. If an airstrike missed, it could hit Russian forces.
Oh, they risked Russian conflict there. There could have been okay, Russia could have shot down a plane, helicopter, whatever. There must have been that. No way they're doing special forces mission without some air support. So they risked a lot of things, right? This is one of those proof why US military is top military in the world. If they can just sneak in and do shit like this, right? Laden thing was another one. They just went there in Pakistan and just did their shit before anybody can realize it. I'm guessing this is going to be something similar. Russian base was just there, and before anybody could realize, they did their thing and left.
And cause an international snafu. Israeli military planners decided the only way to destroy the missile base would be to send in a team of commandos in a high-risk ground assault, unlike anything we've seen in recent history.
Israelis did that. I thought it was US. I'm why the fuck is US getting that aggressive suddenly? But okay, I guess. But no, it's Israelis. Makes sense. It's just a special forces. I assume it's going to be American, since Task and Purpose is American. Yeah.
History. This video contains the actual footage from that raid. But before we go any further, I want to tell you about the folks that made this video possible, Navy Mutual.
So Israel is doing that without the help of US? I mean, there must be no way US didn't help with all the logistics and things. Of course they did. Well, go to navymutual.org and support this channel, or go to original video page link. I don't know. Isn't there some link? I don't know.
Military intelligence first noticed construction of the missile production facility in 2017. The facility was funded by Iran and built by Syria's infamous Scientific Studies and Research Center, or SSRC. The SSRC is responsible for developing Syria's chemical weapons program and has been sanctioned by the US government. It produced precision missiles and rockets that were smuggled over the border to Lebanon to reinforce Hezbollah. Transporting rockets and missiles from Iran has become more difficult difficult in recent years due to Israeli airstrikes and US military interdiction, so they hope to cut out the long transport route and just produce the missiles closer to Hezbollah. Mass production would have the estimated capacity between 100 and 300 advanced missiles produced each year.
Whoa, okay. Yeah, that could have been like we've seen with the shipping route attacks in past year or something. How it was very easily to just mess everything up. Even the Indian Navy and everybody had to like ramp up the defenses, put ships there in that like strait, right? Just to like make sure that commercial lines don't get compromised. So yeah, shit like this is really important. You need to stop this because if like a terrorist organization have this kind of missiles, like that's gonna be a problem. Global economy could be halted, which is like devastating. This is the machine that needs to keep running. There can't be a gap. If there's a gap, it will have like a major bubble in the future.
But the factory had been expanded to produce long-range drones only recently. For the mission, commanders tapped into the Israeli Air Force special operators from Units 5101, also known as Kingfisher, and Unit 669, nicknamed Flying Cats. They're similar to the Israeli version of the Air Force pararescuemen, elite combat medics trained to evacuate and treat personnel from helicopter raids. The teams trained together for 2 months straight to think of anything that could possibly go wrong with the entire mission from the helicopters to the actual raid. They even specially got
I remember the Grand Tour episode, literally the first season, I'm guessing. First season, second episode. That was too cinematic for Top Gear-esque video, but yeah, I'm guessing similar like that. Like they do training and all that shit.
forklift certified for the mission, but I won't spoil the reason why just yet. On the night of September 8th, 2024, it was go time for Operation Many Ways. 100 commandos and 20 combat medics boarded 4 CH-53 Sea Stallion heavy lift helicopters. Escorting the transport choppers was an insane amount of backup. It included 2 Apache attack helicopters that would also provide direct fire support once the troops landed. Then there was 21 fighter jets and 14 recon aircraft along with 5 drones to support the operation. It didn't end there. It also included vessels from the Israeli Navy, and another 30 aircraft were on standby in case the operation went south and ran into trouble. The mission was definitely going to be controversial because it not only violated Syrian airspace, but it would also see Israeli boots on the ground inside Syria during one of the most sensitive times in recent history. The choppers took a route over the Mediterranean Sea and around Lebanon before turning east to cross into Syria along the coastline. The pilots flew.
This is surprising. Like they don't have any kind of like SAM or something. Chopper using at a like longish range in today's world is kind of surprising. Like they could have like detected that and shoot it down. Choppers are not really fast or stealthy. So if some radar picked it up and someone just like shoot the SAM, is it GTA thing, right? Do you remember the GTA missions where you have to like fly a certain level below so SAM doesn't pick it up? Is that real? Did they do it like that? Because that would be insane. That means like special forces can always use helicopter if they need it.
Extremely low, just a few feet off the deck to avoid detection by the Syrian and
I just said it. Yeah, that's true apparently.
Russian air defense that was located in the area. As the assault team approached the coastline, the other aircraft and naval vessels assigned to the operation started hammering targets all over western Syria, sowing chaos and diverting attention away from the mission's true objective. Once the transport choppers crossed into Syrian airspace, it had only taken them 18 minutes to reach the missile factory. When they touched down on the ground, there were no signs that they'd been detected on the way in. They caught the guards completely by surprise, and the element of surprise in something like this is extremely important. The operators split into 3 teams, while the medics stayed with the choppers just in case the teams took any casualties. The first team fanned out, secured the landing site to create a kind of cordon around the facility, while the second team stormed the entrance. They took out 2 guards on the way in, and then the third team secured a nearby hilltop to get the high ground, and they deployed a small drone from there that could monitor.
They are playing Call of Duty right now. Call of Duty is like taking notes, like this is going to be our next mission in the next campaign. And somebody in like Navy SEALs or something like that, I don't know, in like Marines or like Navy, Navy man, like in USA it's probably like just like kicking the desk and everything. Why the fuck can't we do that? Like we spend all this money, trained, we can't even do this shit. Look at the Israelis doing it. This is like Call of Duty mission proper. It's proper special forces mission.
the area and engage hostiles if needed. Then the operation hit its first snag just after landing. Even though they hadn't been detected on the way in, all the distraction fire meant that the Syrian military personnel were on high alert and they were on the move to regroup at any base that they could reach as quickly as possible, either because it was the nearest military base or because someone inside the missile factory had radioed for help. Dozens of Syrian soldiers were now
It's not a Call of Duty mission if something doesn't go wrong.
moving towards that facility. Then they hit their second snag to make matters worse. The heavy blast doors at the entrance were sealed, and it would take almost an hour for the entry team to cut their way through. They called in aircraft overhead, though, to be diverted on a special bombing run. The commandos requested close air support if the air power could be directed to bomb the roads and the narrow mountain passes that led to
Imagine that shit. We need backup. Everybody's just in their Toyota pickup trucks and like mounted machine guns, just like racing towards that in darkness, and it's suddenly they hit jet plane. Ah, fuck. Boom, 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 boom. What are they gonna do with that machine gun against a jet?
to the facility they were at, then they could possibly delay those Syrian reinforcements and stop them from reaching the site while they were vulnerable and outnumbered. Meanwhile, the entry team worked on cutting the doors open. Once they were past the first set of doors, though, they realized there was a second set of metal doors still in their way. Just then, explosions shook the ground. The air support had blown the routes leading to—
Why can't it pause when I click it? Did they use thermite or something to cut it, right? That's the one. The same thing they used to, like, you know, like plug a hole inside an artillery or something in World War II, right? That's the thermite. British also Veritasium video about that recently. So they could use that to cut through, right? I don't know.
To them buying these troops some extra time. This is where the forklift certification that I mentioned earlier comes into play. Intelligence reports had indicated that the factory kept a few forklifts in the entry chamber, so the Israeli operators used those on-site forklifts to lift the second set of metal blast doors so they could scoot underneath it and make their way into the tunnels. Once the facility had been breached, the assault teams cleared the hallways and chambers of about 30 enemy—
That's balls, man. What if those forklifts somehow malfunction in their way out? How are they gonna get out? That's some insane shit.
guards, taking them out as they advanced forward. Then demolition experts raced around and secured areas on a quad bike that they brought on board the CH-53, and they went around planting charges throughout the complex like a scene straight out of GTA. Just them on ATVs slapping charges on the wall. The commandos rigged up 660 pounds worth of explosives, and they rigged it straight to remote detonators. They did a quick tactical site exploitation, grabbing intelligence from the underground facility and taking photos showing specialized mixers used for casting solid rocket motors, and then a couple of shots of the partially assembled weapons. The team rallied back outside the factory and boarded up.
As we talk, as this thing is going on, Navy SEALs are just like slamming their head through the wall. Why the fuck are we not doing this anymore?
On the helicopters safely. As they took off, they set off the charges, creating just a massive explosion. I mean, imagine the combined force of the demo charges along with the huge amounts of rocket fuel and warheads already inside the factory, just completely demolished the facility from the inside out, and the explosion could be felt from miles away. From the Israeli point of view, Operation Many Ways was a success. They'd eliminated a major military production facility, arming missiles on their northern border within 2.5 hours with 0 losses, despite facing heavy air defense and enemy forces on the target area. But why would Israel take a risk like this now? Is it part of some broader strategy? So on that strategic scale, the operation, I think, was a message to Iran. They wanted to send a signal that they had many ways of attacking Iran's proxies, even while they were preoccupied with wars in Gaza and Lebanon. The mission was kept secret for months until reporters from the New York Times caught wind of it through Western officials that had been briefed on the raid, which makes me think that this was purposefully released at this time. So they had some reason for letting people know that they did this, because it wasn't until January 2nd, just after New Year's on 2025, that the Israeli government officially acknowledged the operation and declassified all these details that we just went through. Roughly a month after the Syrian president al-Assad fell, and roughly a month after the IDF started their incursions into the Golan Heights. So the raid took place before the rebel offensive that deposed Assad. But what I think is interesting about the timing of all of this is that after the fall of Assad's government forces, Israeli forces, including tanks and other heavy weapons, breached a UN-mandated buffer zone in the Golan Heights, capturing over 500 square kilometers of Syrian territory. Whether it was a success tactically for Israel or not, on the diplomatic side, this helicopter raid and then ground assault happening and being released in close period of time brought international criticism. So it's true that Israel has occupied and annexed a portion of the Golan Heights since gaining military control of this strategic plateau during the 1967 Six-Day War. After signing a ceasefire.
Look, man, here's the thing, right? All the things that Israel done to Gaza and like all the fucked up thing that is happening to Gaza's like Palestinian civilian, that is fucked up. Like nobody with two brain cells would even like dispute that. But people are like, why is Trump like just like without any like like should I do this, should I not, just like strongly favoring Israel? Even obviously most of the Americans are towards Israel because that's how it is. But like, okay, but like all the protests and things, like why is Trump not talking about Gaza? It's not about humans or humanitarian efforts at all. Trump has a different goal in mind, right? Trump has a means to an end type of mentality right now, that he has to support Israel because only through Israel he can attack all the terrorist organization that is attacking the economy. Only way to fight back against Iran is to support Israel. That's what Trump is thinking. That's what America is thinking. It's not about like, oh, by the way, Israelis are morally wrong if they are like attacking, like Palestinian, this and that. Morality is not even on the table right now. America is not thinking that. America is thinking like last time, Iran and their proxy attacked shipping lines and try to disturb the economy, global economy entirely, right? Where all the countries had to like combine and like protect it. Only way to stop that is to help Israel, so Israel can do shit like this, attack their missile supplies, so shit like that doesn't happen. That's America and Trump's goal. So every time people like just like, oh, is it this or is it that? Whenever global shit happens, global politics or anything like this happens, there is a much deeper layers behind it. This is the layer, right? And obviously people can spin that in like news channels. Oh, he's this, he's that, he's a bad person. What about morality? Morality rarely works at a global stage. That's the fucked up part about it, right? At a human level, at a personal level, we don't like that. But when you talk about the global landscape, global economy, global politics, right? It's usually means to end type of strategy. Like what are we doing and what is going to help us and overall things, right? And then if they have like something left, they'll think about morality. That's the thing. Again, I'm not pro-Trump or against Trump. I don't know why every time I talk about it, like, like a million people unsubscribe and comment. Do you even listening what I'm saying? I mean, come on.
Agreement in 1974, Israel agreed to this demilitarized buffer zone between them and Syria, which was overseen by the newly created UN Disengagement Observer Force. The so-called Purple Line, supervised by the UN, was supposed to ease tensions between Israel and Syria. Yet the IDF's move in December, immediately following the collapse of the Syrian government, go way beyond anything since the signing of the UN DOF agreement in 1974. The Israeli government asserts that because the government that co-signed the ceasefire doesn't even exist anymore, the document is null and void, especially after former Syrian soldiers abandoned their post once they realized that boss wasn't in charge anymore. Critics of Israel's actions have called it an outright invasion of Syria, with massive numbers of troops, vehicles, and aircraft pouring through the UN-established Purple Line and seizing hundreds of miles of territory. The IDF troops advanced all the way to Mount Hermon on December 17th, capturing the peak of the tallest mountain in Syria, which also overlooks the capital city of Damascus. According to open source reporting, 2 brigades, or roughly 10,000 troops, have crossed over the Purple Line since December, with promises of many more to come in recent statements from Israeli officials. Along the ground offensive, Israeli Air Force began a massive air campaign against former Syrian military assets. By mid-December, Israeli fighters had struck over 500 targets across the country, claiming to have destroyed 90% of the ex-Assad regime's air defense systems. The IAF, or the Israeli Air Force, also completely destroyed what was left of the Syrian Navy. Besides ships and air defenses, the targets for these strikes were also known weapon stockpiles, including mustard and nerve gas reserves, missile launchers, parked aircraft or helicopters, and army motor pools. The reason for all this destruction? To stop those weapons from falling into terrorist hands, according to the IDF's justifications. In fact, Turkish news sources reported it was President Assad himself that shared the locations of these classified stockpiles with Israel in exchange for safe passage out of the country. Now, do I know for a fact if any of that is true or not? No. Now, we don't know for a fact if any of that is true or not, but in the uneasy aftermath of the rebel offensive that deposed President Assad, Israel has voiced its concern that the Syrian territory will become a safe haven for ISIS and other international terror groups if there isn't a strong presence to block them. Author and former deputy communications director for the Prime Minister office, Michael Freund, believes Israel should be that strong presence. He advocates in an article in the Jerusalem Post that the captured territories should be annexed. He says, quote, "The new foothold also provides Israel with a panoramic observation point from which it can closely monitor Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, which has also long served as a Hezbollah stronghold, amid the chaos now prevailing in Syria, where a former Al-Qaeda affiliate has assumed power. The existential need for the Jewish state to retain Hermon has never been clearer, a sentiment shared by a consensus of Israelis. But as you might imagine, the offensive in the air campaign has stirred up a hornet's nest of controversy in the international community. Turkey already severed.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? If you point blank try to keep a foothold there, that's the thing that will, like, people use to, I guess, run against you. In the end of the day, you also need to sell it to your people and people around the world who is like helping you, right? So if they can just make you out to a bad guy, or like, you know, like, what is it called, like imperialist type of way, like you're just conquering places and finding excuse to do it type of shit, yeah, I don't think people will be behind you. So you really need to be careful. Like, you come out in like a good light in the end in front of people, if like you want to keep the American support and everything like that. But yeah,
diplomatic relations with Israel this past November in protest of Israel's conduct in the Gaza war. Turkey is also another major player in the Syrian territory, bordering the country to the north, and with direct ties to multiple rebel groups that have helped overthrow the Assad regime. So these power plays from both nations to exert more control over Syria could bring them into direct confrontation as Turkey moves south while Israel moves north. Other international groups warn that Israel's using the pretext of security concerns as a deflection from just a plain old-fashioned land grab. They point to the fact that the Israeli government has already approved plans to bring in even more settlers to the occupied Golan Heights just days after crossing the Purple Line. Regional analysts also argue that Israel's actions might actually backfire, worsening the power vacuum in Syria by preventing a stable government from forming and risking Libyan-style post-Civil War chaos. Amidst all these discussions, Israel then drops the news about the raid back in September, arguing that the raid is evidence both of an urgent need to act decisively against asymmetric threats emanating from Syria, as well as a textbook demonstration of Israel's ability to project power into Syria unchallenged. Israel claims that they have a clear stake in what happens in Syria now that Assad's government has fallen. High-level talks within the Israeli government have been leaked, deliberating if the best thing to do might be to divide Syria.
Yeah. Any Polish watching this, like, yeah, we've been through this. We've been through this many times.
To multiple districts.
Just like other countries deciding to cut up our country as cake.
Along ethnic boundaries, while the issue would be decided during an international summit. The fact that it was Israel that suggested it might cause Syria to reject it outright. Turkey would also likely oppose the idea, since it would offer protection for the PKK, or the Kurdish militias that Turkey has branded as terror groups. For now, Israel's public statements are emphasizing that they intend the military occupation of southern Syria to be a temporary measure. After almost 2 months since the fall of Assad and the end of the Syrian civil war, what happens next in the territory is one of the biggest unknowns of 2025. I'm your average infantryman, Chris.
Yep, there you go. That was an insane mission, but the way it was done makes me think that's not the only one that's going to happen. There are many missions are probably already planned, which is going to be underway the way they did it, because I don't think they would have done it in the fashion they did it if this was the sole one thing they were going to do. So I'm pretty sure they have like many other plans already. Like we're going to hear about it, I'm sure, in the future. But yeah. Right, well, that was Israeli Special Forces ready to blow up missile base in Syria. Watch on task and purpose. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you next time.